Good morning, everybody. Good to see you here today. Thank you for joining me. If you want to follow along, we will be in the book of, in the book of Genesis, chapter number 30, beginning in verse 35. So, just to refresh your memory, Jacob showed up at Laban's house basically broke. But now God has blessed him and rewarded him, and Jacob wants to go home. But Laban wants to keep him and knows that he's been good for business. And so Jacob offers to stay, but only if he can have any of the speckled or the spotted, dark colored sheep there among the flock. And again, they were considered less valuable, and so Laban jumps on this deal, and they separate out the flock so they can keep it straight. And thinking again that Laban thinks he's won, thinks he's got the better end of this deal. Well, beginning in verse 35 says, that day Laban removed the male goats that were striped and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had white on it, and every lamb that was black, and put them in the charge of his sons. And he set a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob pastured the rest of Laban's flock. Then Jacob took fresh sticks of poplar and almond and plane trees and peeled white streaks in them, exposing the whites of the stick. He set the sticks that he had peeled in the front of the flocks in troughs, that is, the watering places where the flocks came to drink. And since they bred when they came to drink, the flocks bred in front of the sticks, and so the flocks brought forth striped, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob separated the lambs and set the faces of the flocks toward the striped and all the black in the flock of Laban. He put his own droves apart and did not put them with Laban's flock. Whenever the stronger of the flock were breeding, Jacob would lay the sticks in the troughs before the eyes of the flock, that they might breed among the sticks. But for the feebler of the flock, he would not lay them there, so the feebler would be Laban's and the stronger Jacob's. Thus the man increased greatly and had large flocks, female servants and male servants, camels and donkeys. All right, first of all, there is nothing in this world. There is nobody, well, there may be somebody. There is nobody with more than a couple brain cells. There's no sign of science. There's no agricultural book anywhere that tells you that if your animals breed around a particular kind of tree branch, that they will produce a certain kind of offspring. Jacob is trying to manipulate the outcome. But God was the one who was in charge. God was the one who was guiding this process, and ultimately the puny sheep, the weak sheep, came out as Laban's, and the stronger ones went to Jacob. And Jacob, it says, became very rich, became very, was well blessed in all that he did. And again, this just reminds us, it's just a simple reminder to us today that, again, Laban thought he had hit the jackpot. Man, I've got Jacob again. I've already hoodooed him once when it came to Leah and Rachel, and now he's come up with this harebrained idea, and he's going to take the puny sheep and give me the strong sheep, and he's going to keep working for me, and he'll never get anywhere. I've got him again. And this passage just serves to remind us in several different ways. Ultimately, God's in control. Jacob could take fresh sticks of poplar and almond and plane trees and peeled the white streaks in them, exposing the white of the sticks, set the sticks in front of them when they were eating and when they were drinking, so that when they would breed. Jacob's fooling himself. Laban's fooling himself. Laban thinks, man, I've won. I've struck this great deal. God was still on the throne. If God said so, those sheep would have been born rainbow colored. God said so, those sheep would have been born with 7 legs and 3 heads. Whatever. God was in charge. Laban, you made a business deal and you think you've won, but God is still in charge. And again, this story, this little section of this story just serves as a good reminder to all of us. We ought to plan. We ought to, there's nothing wrong with Jacob trying to have a good flock. There's nothing wrong with Laban trying to get a good business deal. But ultimately, God is in control. And we can make all our best plans. We can devise all kinds of plans and systems. When it comes to building a church, you can read all kinds of books on how this church did it, that church did it, but ultimately, God's in charge. When it comes to your family, you can listen to Dr. Phil or get whoever's book and read how you ought to raise children and what kind of husband you ought to be and what kind of wife you ought to be. But ultimately, God's plan is the one that matters, and God is in charge. And I encourage you. The Bible tells us to plan. We should be thinking and planning and considering our ways. But ultimately, we trust a God who is in charge. Jacob still hadn't completely realized that, and for sure, Laban hadn't. But hopefully, you will today, that you and I will remember, no matter what, God is in charge. Have a good day. We'll see you here tomorrow morning.